typically when we're measuring units in the United States, we use the so-called imperial system of measurement. So for example, if we are measuring length, we have an inch, and then a foot, and then a yard. You have the furlong, mile, league. There's all sorts of other quantities you can use to measure length, both smaller, in between, and larger than these. And at one point this really made sense. So for example, a furlong, I believe, was the length that you could have a ox pull a cart without having to stop. And so, kind of similar to the acre, I think, was like the amount of area that you could plow in a single day. But these units can be hard to deal with, right? Especially if you think about volume too, and not just length that we use, right? You have a teaspoon, tablespoon, cup, pint, quart, gallon, a barrel, a hogshead is an actual unit of volume, right? And again, maybe some of you who cook a lot probably, know how many teaspoons in a tablespoon, tablespoons in a cup, cups in a pint, but it's nothing. For one, it doesn't make a lot of sense, right? Because each time you're stepping, it's different, right? So for example, there's 12 inches in a foot. There's 3 feet in a yard. I have no idea how many yards in a furlong. More than 5,000 yards in a mile, right? And the fact that I don't remember these is a problem, right? It should be really easy to go back and forth between, different sizes of units. And so in the mid-19th century, the French got together and they made the Le Système International, the SI units. And so they defined a few base quantities. So these were basic quantities that you could measure. So for example, if we're going to measure length, then in SI you would use a meter. If we're going to measure time, in SI you would use a second. Mass is a kilogram. Temperature is Kelvin. The amount of matter in an object is a mole. Current is an amp. Intensity is a candela. And those are essentially the base units. As we'll see in the next video, then we can use those to derive other units. But these are, the most basic units that we can measure, right? And so, for example, length, we just say is L. Now, all these units of volume are just L cubed, which becomes meters cubed, right? And now when we want to go back and forth, so if we want something smaller than a meter or larger than a meter, then we have certain prefixes that we use, right? So if we have 10 to the 15th of something, like 10 to the 15 meters, that's a peta. Tera is going to be 10 to the 12th. Giga, 10 to the 9th. Mega is 10 to the 6th. Kilo, 10 to the 3. And then if we start talking about things smaller than a meter, we have centi, just 10 to the minus 2. Milli is 10 to the minus 3. Micro is 10 to the minus 6. Nano, 10 to the minus 9. Pico, 10 to the minus 12. And femto is 10 to the minus 15, right? So you can cover a wide range of scales here, right? And so that's what makes this useful, is it's just a way to identify, to quickly move, instead of having to multiply inches by 12 to get feet, feet by 3 to get yards. You're just essentially multiplying and dividing by 10, and it's giving you a different unit. And you're probably really familiar with, because this is usually how we measure, the size of things in computers, right? So we measure the number of bytes. And so, when I was growing up, kilobytes was a lot. Nowadays you have, your computer probably holds a few hundred gigabytes, if not terabytes. And it's not uncommon to have data sets now that are on the order of petabytes. So those are some of the most important SI base units. In the next video, we'll look at what some of the derived units are.